Why would I cry? I got 6 more waiting on that telephone. That operator.
What's up? What's going on? What is happening? All right. So, been a good week. Excited about today's guest. I have with us today a guy who probably doesn't need much of an introduction. A lot of you guys know him. Before we get started here, just a couple of quick things. I got some really interesting guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I just wanted to make notes. So I talked to Tommy Mello. Tommy's going to come on. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I talked to Todd Lyles today. He's going to come on the show too. So that's pretty cool. Evan Hoffman. And I actually, if you guys have seen, there's been this viral video that has gone around, and this Little League coach actually got it was this like huge, like this fight. The Little League coach yelling at his son son was like 9 or something like that. It was crazy, right? So this thing goes viral. It's actually from my hometown of where I came from. Pretty wild. Anyway, so there was a coach that resigned from the whole thing and doesn't want to do sports anymore, and he'd been there for years and years. But anyway, be talking to him too. So very cool. Anyway, today I have a gentleman by the name of Brent Buckley. There he is. Brent, what's happening, man? You're in sunny Las Vegas.
Yep. Thanks for having me on, Everett. Yeah. Sunny, 108 degrees today here in Vegas. So lots of air conditioning needs.
It's got to be very difficult to sell air conditioners in 108 degree weather. I don't know how you were ever able to do it.
Well, for 3 months out of the year, it's hot and high demand, but the other 9 months of the year, you got to be, I always called it, this is order taking season. So enjoy it for a couple months, and then you'll have to be a real salesman come September.
Yeah. So for people because there's people that are going to watch this or listen to this that have no idea, they're not in the industry. They just like to whatever. What do you do? Who are you? Like, who's Brent Buckley?
Well, I started out like a lot of you guys. My father was in the business all my life, and I turned 18, graduated high school, and was looking for a summer job. And I was helping my dad out, running parts and helping with installs, and got sucked into the industry full time about 6 months later. So I started as an installer, as a helper, then a lead installer. Then I became a service tech. My dad lived in Colorado, so I spent a year and a half out there, and I ended up moving back to Vegas, where I'm from, and put me in connection with Ken Goodrich. And I started with Ken Goodrich, I think I was 19 and a half years old, at a company that he had just started called Yes Air Conditioning here. And I started as a selling technician. And, I had my first $1 million year in 2005, which was kind of unheard of. I mean, there was only a few people that really did that kind of revenue back then. And every year I just strive to be better at, my process and increasing my revenue and sales ability. So,
yeah, I remember like in 2009, like when I started in this industry, was it 2009? I remember, and it was like, you got like a plaque or an award. If you were like, if it was $1 million, you'd be like, whoa, we're going to give, $1.5 million. Be like, whoa, like,
yeah, if you were $1 million producer, you were in the top 0.005 percentile in our industry. So a lot's changed since then,
A lot has changed. Okay. So, all right. So since then though, you worked for years on the road. You were an installer, then you were a service technician, and you were a selling technician. You learned how to price up jobs and everything else. And then you a few years ago, right? Like, didn't you bought a company, right?
Yeah. So, each year I outperformed the year before, sometimes by only a few 100,000, sometimes by $1 million, depending on the year. But I ended up in 2019 at about 7.5 million in sales. And that was as a selling tech. So I was, going out to service calls, flipping the jobs over to myself and basically selling them. I was the only one from start to finish. And I over those years, got to work on my process because, when it started in the beginning, it wasn't easy. And, the process wasn't correct, so over the years, I was able to constantly kind of tweak it. That doesn't work, tweak it. And really was able to develop my communication skills and how I presented stuff to people and how I said it, and so in 2019, I reached kind of a peak where I felt like at 7.5 million, I wasn't really able to do much else. And so it really wasn't entertaining me to continue to be a selling tech. And I was approached by a couple of people, and we started and formed a business called Fetch a Tech here in Las Vegas. And basically, we rolled up 3 companies. The business in total was doing about $7 or $8 million with a negative $1 million of EBITDA. So I came in there and was able. It started with just me, as I was doing. I was a comfort advisor and I was a selling tech. So in the morning, I would go run some service calls, and then by 10 o'clock, the other 2 technicians I had with me were, working on something. I was communicating with them, and I would run over to them. And it started off like that, and it kind of elevated over the next 12 months to where we had 10 to 15 technicians at any given time. My time was then spent assisting those guys and going out to their jobs. And I know a lot of people are like, hey, how in the heck is it possible that you even have enough time in the day to do 14 million? And I will tell you this, if you asked me 5-6 years ago if I could do 14 million, I would say it was impossible. But when I was a selling tech, I knew I needed to scale myself and spread myself out more, And so what I started doing is developing people, replacing myself, basically developing more technicians that were, that knew my process, and I was able to train that too. And I at one time I had 15 technicians and me and a couple other salespeople, and I was literally running 6-7 days a week, 5 to 6 leads a day, and closing 85% of those at a 20,000 plus average ticket. And it happened. So, for all the people that say it's impossible, well, it's not impossible, because I did it. And 95% of that was in the home. And I just developed some really, really good technicians that were able to communicate and flip those jobs over. And we were really efficient about it.
Yeah, that was a big question, was like, dude, how do you find enough time in the day? And so really, I mean, it's the same process that's ran in so many different businesses, and especially in our business, right? It's like, okay, so you teach a process, and when the opportunity arises, you arrive at the house and you propose options that make it easy for people to make a decision. So I find it's interesting because, like I said, I was talking to you a little bit before, and I was saying, like, in these groups, they're loud. These guys are loud. And like, a lot of them, I think, are just haters because they're jealous of success in general. I think that's just the nature of the beast. People are just jealous of other people that are successful.
And I get it.
The Yankees.
I get it. I mean, like I said, if you asked me 5 years ago if I can do 14 million, or if you told me somebody in the industry 5 years ago that was doing 14 million, I would tell you it's impossible. I'm like, because I was maxed out at 7.8 million as a selling tech. I really couldn't do anything more than that, and that took me 20 years or 18 years to get to that point to where I could even do that. So what I did is I was able to scale myself, my skills, my process, and developed an entire company revolved around my sales process, and really developed talent that was able to set these calls up to when I got there, we were able to get it closed and at a rapid pace. So then what happened in 2023 was I was able to. The only flaw with that sales model is that the business really revolved around me. And at some point, when you're trying to get past like 25 million and, 7 million of EBITDA and all that, you got to look outside the box. So in 2023, I kind of changed it up and I got out of the field, and I was more of a coach and a call-by-call manager in the office. And I was able to take my top 2 or 3 flippers and make them CAs. And because they got to see me come to every call, and they got to see the sales process and the closing process. And they were able to duplicate it at a pretty good level to where I trusted that they were able to do it. And I started just creating myself over and over and over again. And I've been out of the business since January. And I mean, they're still pacing a $25-30 million a year without me there. So
you fetched techs. You fetched techs. No, I'm just saying, I was trying to play on words there, like fetch a tech.
I built salespeople is what I did. I took great people that were, that had great communication already. And I was able to kind of build them into, Fetch has got probably $3 or $4 or $5 million producers right now. When we started, a couple of those guys, like one of the guys just told me he's the top in the division. And, I remember hiring him, and he was coming from another company making $700 a week. And now he's, these guys have been able to buy houses and cars and really, part of my sales process and my, the sales environment that I created was discipline and consistency. And it took a lot for some of these guys to fall in line, but over time we were able to really build something that was a system there, and so I'm really proud of what we created over at Fetch a Tech. And I don't know if all the listeners know, but we were able in 2023 to exit the business at a very high multiple, north of 12x. And so now I'm on the corporate side, helping them develop sales or maintenance technicians and stuff at different branches throughout the country. Champions Group has about 20 different branches, 22. And I'm visiting those and spending about 3 days a week doing training with those guys.
So what do you have to say to people, the haters? And I already know the answer, but what do you have to say about people who are like, well, there's, there is no way you can create that many opportunities with your calls. You've got to be doing something that is, under the radar, unethical, whatever it is. I've heard all sorts of stuff. What would you say to somebody that says that?
Well, at every level of my career, when I was selling $1 million a year, people were saying, "Oh, that's impossible." When I was selling $5 million a year, they were saying that's impossible to do it ethically. $7.5 million to be able to create an entire business that I was able to build a sales department that was consistent and delivered daily, no matter what the weather was. Some people would say that's impossible. And so my entire career, I've been hearing that. And the thing is that most people have a limited belief of what's in their little world. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if you asked me 5 or 6 years ago, if you told me somebody was doing $14 million in sales in this industry, I would tell you it's impossible. There's no way. It's not happening. There's something going on, blah, 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 because I could only personally do 7.8 million as a selling tech. So what I could say is that to the haters out there is that maybe open up your spectrum a little bit and really try to fathom, how Michael Jordan became Michael Jordan, how Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls and played quarterback until he was 44 years old. So we push the limits. I've always been somebody that has never been entertained very long and really always wanted more and better for myself. And so I always push the limits. I always worked super hard, and I was able to create a team that could allow me to do 14.7 million. It was a whole system that was built to be able to do something like that. Are there other companies in the country that have a dialed-in system like that? Probably less than a few that I know of, but it is possible. So
if you had if someone said you absolutely have to give I don't believe in silver bullets. I think it's a whole lot of things that you have to do, right? You have to do a lot of things really right. And you have to communicate at a level that is just like laser focused communication, but, and listening, right? But what, if you had to say there's like an attribute that you think made you, what would you say your strongest attribute actually is? Like, what would it be?
Well, I've always been driven, and I've always been disciplined. So my wife thinks I'm crazy. Well, she doesn't think I'm crazy, but if you asked her today, she'd be like, he has the same exact routine every single day. He gets out of bed, he goes and brushes his teeth, he sits down on his chair and he puts his clothes on. He goes to the garage, he puts his boots on before he goes to work, and he's out at the same time. I'm never late, I'm always early. And so I've always had that strict discipline of, even though I don't feel like doing it, I'm still going to do it, and that's transferred to a lot of different areas of my life. Physically, when I'm talking about the gym, financially, my marriage, my kids, everything has all translated. But I think the best thing that ever happened to my sales career was being able to talk to people and disarm people and be able to communicate in a tone that they really they're able to gravitate to you, your energy, because it's not, that saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so the process from the minute I hit the door, if I'm running a service call, to the minute I'm out the door with the sale, there's a lot in that process that I do, and I train, and I, create to eliminate objections before they come up, be a friend to them, get them to go the right direction. And, I think a lot of it's your, tonality and the way that it's presented and how it's said.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because my observation of you, like when we met in Vegas a couple of years ago, was that like you're very unassuming, and also like, I think it's a friend. You have a very friendly nature about you. And I think that like, I actually have, I think the same characteristic, and I think people gravitate towards that. and when you have sincerity, there's a defining characteristic. If anybody, this is not a business building podcast, but this is very interesting. So, Jim Collins, Good to Great, right? That book. One of the things that Jim Collins talks about in studying all of these businesses for like years and years and years and years and years is that the leaders in those organizations, that there's one defining characteristic of a leader in an organization that can define like the highest level of leader. And that one characteristic, it's not drive, it's not any of the other stuff. It's actually humility. And I think you have a level of drive and passion, yes, but I think that you have a level of humility to you that is like uncanny for somebody who's as highly successful as you are. So it's definitely something to note, right? I don't know if you view yourself like that.
Yeah, no, I do. It's a natural part of me to have humility. And also one thing I left out is selling with empathy. So people can really feel if you care or not, and I think being empathetic, even though it doesn't change the situation, it does assist in making it an easier transition for the customer. So, empathy is a huge thing for me, and you can't necessarily teach that, but you can coach it to ask certain questions to kind of get to that point,
Yeah. Nobody cares how much until they know how much you care. Right? Was it Teddy Roosevelt? Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your travels, in your days, I mean, you're talking about like at this point in time, 23 years, that's like probably tens of thousands of calls that you've run. What's like the craziest shit you've seen? You're in Vegas, right?
I'm in Vegas.
You're in
Vegas.
You've seen some stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Over the years as a service technician, I've seen it all, man. I have seen it all. Probably the one that sticks out the most is the mansion house where they were shooting a porno. So I get a service call in the middle of summer. It's like 110 degrees in July. And there's probably like six units on this house. And so I go up there and I'm walking around. This lady answers the door and almost like a mother figure kind of. I was like, okay. So I walk in and she's trying to show me the areas of the house that aren't cooling. And I'm like walking in these rooms and there's like these girls in bikinis. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I mean, this is like 6 or 7 different areas of the house. And so I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together like, hey, what's going on? Right. So I take a look at the system. It's like 15 years old. It has a refrigerant leak in the coil. And, I'm like, these people weren't, what I found out is they weren't the owners of the house. So I'm talking to the main lady that answered the door and she's like, okay, let me get so-and-so on the phone. So I kind of explained it to him. He's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. So I'm out in my truck, put my stuff back in or whatever. And this orange Lamborghini, this is back in like 2009 or 10, like it was a long time ago. And this orange Lamborghini pulls up and I'm like, holy smokes, this big jacked up dude comes out of it. He's got a man purse like that thick. And we go in the house. I'm explaining to him what's going on. I was like, hey, the system's going to have to be replaced. I know you guys don't own the house, she was telling me, so I don't know if we can get in contact with the owner and kind of, there was a lot of stuff that led up to that, but basically he pretty much told me like, we're not calling the owner. I just need it fixed because it was like the whole main area. And, he's like, I just got to have it fixed. How soon can you do it? And I was like, well, I mean, I hadn't even given you a price yet. Do you know what these things cost? And, he's like, I don't know, like 5,000-6,000. I was like, yeah, I mean, probably north of that. You're going to have the furnace matched and everything else. And anyways, I tell him $10,000. I give him a quote. This is back in 2008 or 9, something like that. And this guy opens up this man purse he had, and it is full of cash, man. He counts out $10,000 right there, right? I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this is nuts. And so I call my boss. I'm like, hey, I don't know what's going on here. This guy just gave me 10 grand. Let's do the job. You know, they don't own the house, but they're paying for it. So he ends up paying me and taking off right away. Like within like 10 minutes, he's gone. So I got the install set up for the morning because it was kind of a rush. He's like, we got some stuff going on here. He wouldn't tell me, right? So my installers call me. They go out there the next morning and they're doing the install. And he's like, this is like 10 in the morning. And he's like, he calls me, this guy, Zach, he actually works at Fetchatech still, at Fetchatech now. But he's like, dude, they're shooting a porno here. I'm like, what? He's like, yes, we're putting in the unit and there's naked girls everywhere, like 10 of them everywhere. Guys everywhere. Like the house was packed with people and video cameras everywhere. And so it was a pretty wild story. I've had people buy air conditioning for equipment for houses that they didn't own, you know, in the past. It's very rare, but yeah, to have somebody bust out like 10 grand cash, and I was just amazed. And this house was huge too. I mean, it was.
So that's so funny because like you think about it, like, okay, we can't have the owner know what's going on. We're going to just slap 10 grand cash down here. So he doesn't know what we're doing here. And then the guy's going to go back to his house, like the owner, and he's going to be like, is there a new central air conditioning in here? Like, not only do they pay the rent, but dude, that's crazy. Oh
yeah. I mean,
you have any,
that's the only guess I had is they didn't want anybody to know what they were doing there or something, you know? So he was just willing to fork out the cash to get it fixed. Cause it was like the main atrium area where they were doing all the video recording and stuff. And it was like 90 something degrees in there. So, you know, I could see, you know, them wanting to get it fixed, be able to continue on. But it was kind of crazy because each girl had like her own room.
Well, it's a mansion, right? I'm thinking about this, like mansions. I'm thinking Vegas. I'm thinking there's a lot of money in Vegas, but I'm also thinking there's like some seedy parts of Vegas too, right? Have you ever found yourself in like a dangerous situation?
Yes. So one time I went to a rental property on another 110-degree day in July. This is like even before that, so maybe like 15 years ago. And I went to this guy's rental property. He had a bad motor and a blower wheel and some other stuff. And it was going to be like $2,000. And he's like, well, just fix it. And I'm like, well, I got to talk to the owner and get approval. I can't even perform any work here. And we kept calling the owner, and the owner was like overseas. And so we weren't able to get in contact with him right away. And the guy was dying in the house. And I was like, why don't you just like pay for it now, you know, and then get reimbursed from her? And he refused. And it kind of went on for like an hour, and we were like super busy. And I'm like, hey man, I'll call you back. Here's my number. And so he ends up, I start to like gather my stuff and walk out the front door, and he like pulls a gun on me, and he's like, you're not going anywhere. I'm like, what? Yeah. He's like, you're going to get this thing fixed. I'm like, okay, let me go talk to my office real quick. So I walk out, and he's got a freaking gun in his hand. And I go and get in my van and talk there, and I just take off, dude.
Yeah, and, dude, get out of there.
Yeah.
Do not service.
Crazy. Yeah.
Do not service. Wow.
So like he calls back like 3 days later to the office, like asking if we could come out and do the repairs because he got approval from the owner or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, yeah, we're not going back there again. So
yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I mean, we see like gunshots to condensers all the time, like on rooftops, because we have a lot of rooftop package units here, residential houses. So you see that pretty often. But yeah, it's a pretty crazy place. I mean, one of the other ones that stands out is I was probably only working a year or two in Vegas. So I had to have been like 21, 22. And I go to a sleazy part of town into these condos, and I'm looking at this air conditioning unit, and this lady's kind of following me around. She's like, okay, I got to take a phone call, and so I go back to her, and she's literally a sex phone operator. So she's on the phone making all kinds of noises, and she's like, oh. She puts the phone back. She's like, oh my God, this guy won't let me go. And then she just, because I guess they keep buying more minutes or something from her. And
this is like the 1-900 numbers, 1-900 numbers back in the day. Holy moly.
Yeah, she was literally doing it on the phone as I was trying to explain to her on paper what was wrong with her system. Because this phone call went on for an hour, dude. Like, so I'm like writing it down, and she's like on the phone making noises, and every once in a while she'd like put it to her chest real quick and then say something to me and then put it back. And surprisingly or not, I didn't think this lady had 2 nickels to rub together. She bought a new unit because I was able to finance it for her, but still she had the credit to do it, which I was shocked because it's a really bad area of town. And she actually owned the condo, so it was kind of weird.
Every once in a while, man, you get like, I mean, I had a customer whip out like freaking 10 grand in cash. And I thought this woman was off her rocker. She was crazy. And she was living in like complete filth. And she goes, hang on. And she goes upstairs and she comes down with a deposit of 7,000 in cash. And I'm like, okay, we'll do the job.
I had a lady one time on a mobile home go pull the skirting off the side of the mobile home, go under the mobile home and get $10,000 in cash and come back out. And this lady was like 75 years old. Like she crawled underneath there and grabbed it. It was crazy. I was like, so that was pretty odd.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah. So like what's kind of like, give me, I'd be interested in, I know you have a couple like in the hopper. I would be interested to hear some of your more interesting ones.
This one's a little bit more of kind of something that was like a good deed that I had done. So probably you could Google it probably on Google and find it. But back in like 2017, I went to this husband and wife, elderly couple. They had we were like the third company out. They were trying to figure out how to get it fixed, and nobody could do it. And it needed a new unit, and they couldn't get financing. They had some things that were outside of their control happen to them where their credit wasn't, able to allow for anything like that. And so I don't know, like the people were so genuine and nice, and you could tell they're just like good people. And I was like, look, let me call my office. I'll buy the unit and help you guys out. And I'll see if I can get the crane to donate their time. And I'll see if the company, at the time it was Yes, if they would be able to donate, the sheet metal and the install and all that. Let me see if I can coordinate something for you guys. Cause I could tell it was extremely hot. They had no air. They're elderly. You could tell when you went in the house that they were just dying. Like I was afraid like that they had one room with a portable unit in it that they stayed in. And, I was kind of concerned that, something could happen there if we didn't restore the air conditioning. It was just that hot out. And so I was able to get the crane to donate their time. I purchased the unit from our manufacturer Carrier. They gave me a great deal on it. They had a kind of like a scratch and dent one. I got the company to donate the labor, and we were able to set a new unit. And it didn't start out like this, but the marketing guy at Yes Air Conditioning in ARS, they kind of got wind of what was going on, and they actually surprised me out at the property with Fox 5, and so it was like a whole story. Oh. But yeah, it was a really good, memorable moment from me, because I was able to do something and give back. Over the years, I've done a lot of repairs and stuff for free, capacitors, stuff just for people that just really couldn't afford it. As a premium contractor too, we weren't the cheapest guys in town. And so some people just weren't able to do it, for one reason or another. And I've always done a lot of different small things. And it's just, to me, I just think of it as like, a good deed. And it's, we make really great money out there and margins and stuff. And we can give back to the community when we have an opportunity to. So that was really a standout moment for me in my career. And
we did last year. There was a lady. We did similar situation. No Fox 5, but similar situation. And there was a grandmother who had inherited these two little kids, her grandkids, because mom and dad got like shipped off to like jail or whatever, or like they got shipped off by CPS or whatever it was. And she's sitting there and she's like crying and she's like trying, like she got approved for financing, but she was like, I can't even afford the payment. Literally, I'm trying to get food for my kids. I figured maybe I had a couple bucks for like a quick repair, and the unit was just toast, right? So like, dude, my sales rep called me and he told me the situation, and I was like, bro, we got a scratch and dent in the warehouse. Let's just go. We're gonna go and put one in. That's it. And the whole team got together and we did the same thing. So definitely a good side of things. Speaking of that, I ask every guest gets the same question. Okay, and this is what is one experience, one customer? It could be somebody you worked with, but specifically in the field. And I like to hear about customers specifically that like you ran a call there and it lives with you, like shapes you in some sort of way where you think about it today still.
Well, there's two calls that stand out. One was the biggest sale of my entire career, and two would be the other one, which was the nastiest house I've ever been in, and it still gives me creeps. And I remember our installers actually installing the equipment in hazmat suits after they fumigated the house. But I'll start with the first one.
Let me clarify. What I meant by that is like something that you learned that you carry with you as like a lesson, like something that is like maybe heartfelt, maybe inspired you in some sort of.
Well, I mean, when you're dealing with the public, you're running into all kinds of different scenarios, every day. But I think the most inspiring and most memorable call would be really probably.
I put you on the spot. Yeah. It's funny too, because I've had a couple of people who it's like instantaneous, and then a couple of people who have been doing this a really, really long time who have a harder time because there's so many like moments. Because I don't know about you, but I'm cerebral, so I carry so many of these stories like with me.
Well, I think most of them are elderly. I think one thing that stands out to me and it's come to mind is the can lady. And I call her the can lady because she lived in a mobile home. She didn't have anything. There was a couch and a bed, and she would pay us every year $169 for a maintenance contract. She would request me only, and I would go out there, for as long as I can remember, 10 years at least. And every time I went out there, she gave me a tip of canned goods. So I would have a shopping bag of canned food that was sometimes expired. And it just reminded me every time is that, that was her way of showing appreciation and the humility, and I accepted that every single time. And, I wouldn't necessarily eat it or anything, but I might donate it or whatever. But the can lady is a pretty significant memory because every time I go out there, I'll get a big bag of canned goods as a tip. So,
do you still have stuff in your house that maybe a customer gave you?
No, I mean, I've always, like I told all my people, all my sales guys and technicians over the years, if they offer you something, you take it. Meaning, if it's coffee, water, you sit down and drink it. You have lunch with them, because they're trying to, that's their way of showing you that they like you and they appreciate your service, and they're trying to show you value in that way, And
some people won't actually do business with you unless you break bread with them. And actually it's funny because Jason Walker told this story about how he drank, like, in order for him to get the sale, he had to drink. It was this I think it was an Indian guy. He had to drink kava, and the guy made him drink a shot of kava with him before he said, yes, go ahead. But he's like, I'll do this job with you, but you have to drink a shot of kava with me. And he got messed up actually, and ended up having to call out the rest of the day.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think when you're able to sit down at somebody's table and share coffee or water or maybe a sandwich or whatever, I think that builds, a lot of character and it builds a relationship with the customer, that you didn't have just talking to them in the hallway of their house or whatever.
I'll never forget this one house. And this is one that lives with me, right? Crazy house. There was a helicopter in the basement. Okay. And it was a massive house. It was like in Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen's neighborhood, New Jersey, an area called Rumson. And I was there. Nicest couple ever, right? The guy invented like something. He was like a crazy invention. He had money. Bearskin rugs, tiger skin rugs, all this kind of stuff. Well, we sat at the table. I was there for a while. They were like, we're shopping around. We're just letting you know that we're shopping around. But we do want, it's an important decision for us. We sat down, and I'll never forget, this woman broke out, and I was there for like 4 hours, and she broke out a hunk of turkey pastrami, not sliced from the deli, but like the whole hunk of turkey pastrami, which, if everybody knows, like, not everybody knows this, but my favorite cold cut meat ever in the history of the world is turkey pastrami. So I was like, so she sits there and she slices me off this most magnificent, like, it was like gourmet, like turkey pastrami. Anyway, she slices it up. She puts it out. She gives me a sandwich. I ate the sandwich with them. I enjoyed their company. And wouldn't you know, they were like, could you give us 1 minute? And it went in the other room and came back in or whatever. And they were like, we've decided we're not going to shop around. We're just going to go ahead with it. We love you. We really want to do this job. And I can't help but to think, like, the fact that, she fed me and gave me this amazing sandwich that I thoroughly enjoyed. And I bet you, because I talk a lot, I bet you I said, like, hey, this is my favorite. You sat down with the best meat, lunch meat. Like, if I were to choose a lunch meat, like, this would be my lunch meat. So anyway.
Huh. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I wanted to tell you. So one thing that stands out on the call is my biggest sale ever happened a couple years ago. Actually, that was in that 14.7 million. My guy's calling me out to his house, and he's like, one of the units is kind of leaking, and it's like all rusty from the coil pan, rusted through, and it's kind of leaking down. And we're looking around, and I'm like, did you look at the other units? And they're like, well, no. I mean, there's 8 of them. It's like, well, I'm going to spend all day here. So we start, poking around and looking at everything. Anyways, we talked to the customer for a long time. I sold 8 inverters on this house for $240,000, and that was my biggest sale ever. And they paid with American Express. And so that was that job stands out just because of the massive size of it and all the callbacks.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. So 8 inverters, and were they Carrier? Were you doing Carrier?
We were doing Daikin, so gas split, 90% furnaces with an inverter AC.
Yeah, the fit. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Wow. That reminds me, I have a friend, Chris, who actually runs a branch of ARS, and I'll never forget, like, this one sticks with me, but like he went to this rental property, but there were like 7 boilers or 8 boilers or 9 boilers, like in the basement. And they were all like, they all needed service. They were all old. They all needed to get replaced or whatever. And the owner of the building, like he and him just got along or whatever it was. And the guy whipped out a black card at the end of it and gave him like 90 grand to do all the boilers. Like, just like, here you go. And when he asked him, you know, like I asked him, I was like, bro, you know, like what happened there? He's like, bro, he's like, he said he had avoided doing them for however much time and he just wanted them done. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to spend the 90 grand. I'm going to get the boiler. It was like 89 grand. And so it was, that was pretty cool. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's a big sale. Yeah, 90,000. What year was that?
That was like 5 years ago, dude. 6 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I moved to Dallas, I was managing this team with a company that I was working for. And then, but I was also like half the day, I was also out like doing what you did, right? Like running calls. So I remember there was this guy and he's pretty famous. So I don't want to like say who he is, but put it this way, like on the wealthiest people in like Texas list, but he was like a super shopper. You know what I mean? Like he was like, he wanted all the information, analytical, the whole deal. And I'm really good at that stuff. Like I love the technical aspect of it. So like he finally, after like talking to him on the phone, he was like, okay, he invites me over to the house. And I ended up actually doing about $65,000 worth of work there. And a lot of that actually was, you know, people are like, oh, how do you get these great sales? Well, that wasn't like this is a one call close. That was like I built a relationship with this guy and then I was able to be persistent with him and answer his questions and cover all the bases and take calculations and measurements and look at the ductwork and go through the house. It's like these guys, like half these guys that you know, the haters, especially, man, they actually don't realize that there's so much work that goes into that. They're like, oh, these guys. And the first thing they say, oh, they must be doing something, you know, something wrong. And it's like, no, we're just really, really good. Right. So anyway, sorry.
It took me 20 years to get this good. You know, it wasn't overnight. And I think I spent a lot of years working super hard and taking a lot of rejections before I got a lot of yeses, you know? So
it's like baseball, right? Like you're going to fail more times than you're going to succeed. Right. And then, you know, every at bat you get a little bit better and that's just the way it works. Right. I mean, for you succeeded more times than you failed. But for most, they fail more times than they succeed. Can you get back up again? Can you get back up to the plate? You get hit by a pitch, you're going to go back up there. You know, there's a lot to it. So
yeah.
What else you got? Anything else in the hopper there, or do we cover all of them? We good?
No, I think that's it, man. That's what I got.
That's pretty cool. So for people that are watching that really want, like, so earlier on, like we talked a little bit about your process and whatnot, and kind of your silver bullets and whatnot. But if you had any sort of, if you had advice, you were talking to people, like you do training now, right? Like, what would you say to like maybe a struggling business owner or a struggling guy or whatever? Like, what would you say, like, you know, the way that you built your business, how would you, what would be some of the things that you would like check boxes? And I'm not talking about specifics, but I'm saying like check boxes to cover.
Well, I think first off, you know, I would surround yourself with people that are doing it better than you and see what they're doing differently. Two is stick to the process. A lot of people like to veer from their process when they aren't getting the results that they want. And like every technician that I coach and I ride along with and spend time with, you know, I let them know that this is the HVAC roller coaster. You know, you're going to have some really good days. You're going to have some really bad days. But overall, the goal is to be better than you were yesterday. And I know a lot of business owners this day and age with social media, they're seeing everybody post their $3 million a month, and this technician sold 800,000 in July. And they're almost distracted from what they need to do to improve from where they were yesterday and not worry about what everybody else is doing. So staying consistent to the process, surround yourself with people that are doing it better than you. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today without networking and meeting people like you, Everett, and my other partner, Tom Howard, and some other people in the industry. And there's so much opportunity out there for everybody. I think staying well connected in the industry and for the business owners that are out there, and surround yourself with people that genuinely want to help you and contribute to your success. Because there's a lot of people out there that are, posing to have all the secrets and stuff. And there's no secret. I mean, I think the best secret there is that everyone has a journey, and some get there faster than others. And I think over time, if you stay consistent to, a growth mindset, that you'll get to where your goals want to be,
That's powerful. I like the way you said that. Some people get there faster than others.
It's just like, for me, I don't know. Some people, they go to the gym 5 days a week and they spend an hour and a half in the gym and they can barely put on any muscle, right? And it's really hard for them to add muscle to their body, and they're doing everything right? Then you have like some people that go to the gym and they can add 20 pounds of muscle in 3 months, and it's easy. So everybody's journey is a little different, and the way that they get to their goals. But more importantly, stick to the process. All my technicians, they like to, when I was running Fetch Tech, they like to call me every call and tell me all the reasons why the call wasn't going to work out and what they should do. And my answer, if you ask them today, my answer was always stay with the process, stick with the process that right? We don't know what the end result's going to be if you don't stick to the process, So overall, I think most people need to concentrate on being better than they were yesterday, not better than Joe Smo in Dallas, Texas, or LA, or, there's a lot of social media flaunting going on, and you should be concentrated on being just that much better every day than you were the day before. And if those goals start small and they get bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger over time, but nothing happens overnight,
Yeah. Small steps. And then there's actually a great book on that. It's called The Compound Effect. And it talks exactly about that. Like it's like small steps. You can't, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? You're very rarely going to have like instant success over things. You have to take things, one sort of piece, one step at a time, like every day. Like I write lists out, and I'm like, okay, checkbox. And I kind of run my life in check boxes. Did I get this done? Did I get this done? Did I do this? Did I do this? I think you probably operate a lot like that. So man, this has been a really great conversation. Before we sort of, wind down here, is there anything you want to tell our audience here?
You're in the greatest business out there, man. It's, HVAC, plumbing, home services. There's so much opportunity to be had out there for the people that want to work for it and go out there and get it. And for the technicians that are out there, continue to work on your process and grow a little bit each day. And before you know it, you'll be a $5 or $10 million producer. And for the business owners out there that are struggling, remember business systems, processes, your culture, all that stuff is your end result is, how your business is performing. So, I would concentrate on each little thing as much as you can.
What would you, one more, I have a question about that. So time management, you obviously have a family, you have a beautiful family. You work well for years. You work really where you're running 5.5, 6 days a week. How do you balance that?
I didn't, when we were growing the business, Fetch-A-Tech, I was working 6-7 days a week, but, I really enjoy the grind, and, I really balanced my time as much as possible with my family and kids. And, I would run from service call to football game to another sales call. And, really, sometimes it's not a balance. Most of the successful people that I've seen in this industry haven't necessarily had the best, family, fitness, business, balance. So I think balance is for some people it's not,
Yeah. It's funny you say that. There's a book by Timothy S. Grover called Winning. And Timothy S. Grover was the trainer for Michael Jordan and for Kobe Bryant. And Kobe only brought him on because he wanted to be Michael Jordan, right? He wanted to be the greatest basketball player ever. And there's a chapter in the book, and it talks about what it actually I was actually on my way to go coach another company in Oklahoma when I was listening to this book. And it literally says, like, hey, if you're looking for balance, if you want to win, listen, everybody should have balance if that's what you want in life. The winners never had balance. Kobe never had balance. MJ never had balance. There was no balance. In fact, Kobe worked harder than MJ. MJ actually did do some extracurriculars and whatnot. Kobe didn't. Like, it was all work. And he's like, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do. He's like, I'm just saying this is what it takes if you want to be the absolute best. So it's no surprise and no secret to me that you really have no balance of work and life. And you know what? You've crushed it. But guess what? The sacrifices that you have made, and this is my opinion, and you can tell me to shut up, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but the sacrifices that you have made over the last 23 years, you're still a young dude, and you're cashing in, bro. So you just said you sold your company in like the upwards of 12 times EBITDA. So guess what? Yeah, you might roll in and you might go train and whatever else, but dude, you're not working nearly as hard. I shouldn't say that. You're not working as many hours now that you used to. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. I'm working 9 to 12 days a month, and I've got more balance right now than I've ever had in my entire career. But I've earned it, I've earned it.
Yeah.
Is it permanent? Maybe not. I think the next business I build, it's going to take a lot of my time, but I really enjoy building businesses. My family supports me. My wife's like my biggest cheerleader, and she always tells me, like, she's here to help me get the trophy, and what that means is she's at home and she's taking care of the other side of the business, which is the family and the household and all that. And so we work really well as a team, and she gets it. And, so right now I'm just enjoying the time I have with the family and stuff. And, my kids are older now, so it's a little easier. My daughter is going to be a senior next year. My son is going to be in 9th grade, and then another one in 10th. So, they know, my role has always been the provider, so I feel like I contribute to the family in that way. But I think, if you want to be the best of the best, there is no balance. You're going to give every effort and time towards your goal of being the best in your industry. It doesn't matter if you're a basketball player, football player, HVAC sales guy, plumber, you you can be the best of, in any industry, but it's going to absorb a lot of your time. So
yeah, there's sacrifice there. Bro, I've loved this conversation. It's been awesome. Man. So, dude, I'm gonna say adieu. I appreciate everybody out there that watched. Did you have anything else you wanted to?
No, just anybody that wants to connect, I'm on Facebook, Brent Buckley, Instagram, cooling_Vegas. You're welcome to send me DMs. I like to help out as much as I can in the industry and give back, because the industry has just been so good to me. And that's why I was telling you earlier, I love doing these podcasts when I can fit it in my schedule and stuff, because I just like giving back to the industry and showing people what's possible. And, a lot of people have questions that, that really help them out in their process and stuff. And if I'm able to get back to you, I will. So, but yeah, follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Let's all stay connected.
That was, and a side note, I know you don't have a coaching company, right? You don't have a training company, but like you work with companies periodically. You have a little bit of time. Like, is that something that you're doing? Is that something that you are?
Yes, very selective. I do have a little bit. I spend some of my off time coaching a few people here and there. My time's like super valuable and it's limited, so it's not like I can take on 20 or 30 people at a time. But the people I have been able to help, they've been able to improve their process and be able to, provide better for their family. So.
Okay. So nobody should really be blowing up your inbox, but for sure you can, yeah. Okay, good. So yeah, that's great, man. Well, you have, you're working 9 days a week, but you're also doing some coaching on the side. So you're kind of filling the gaps there because that's what players do. Players play, I guess it's pretty wild. Totally get it. I have every minute of my life is filled. So, I don't know if I could do it any other way, dude. I really don't. I mean, I have a full-time job. I do this and I play music out all the time. I get hired to play like literally all the time and it's nuts. And I just, but I don't know if I could do it any other way. I don't know. I don't know how my wife deals with me either.
Yeah. I mean, after we sold the business, I was at home for like a month and I was like, man, I cannot do this. So I gotta be busy. It's for me, it's like the grind and and really just staying, productive. And, so although I could probably retire after the sale of Fetch a Tech, but, I still see myself very deep rooted in the industry and, we'll see what opportunities come up later on. So I'm sure you've
got something in the hopper, brother. Yeah, I'm going to put you in the green here. So in the beginning here, I have a couple of guests coming on, trying to organize with Tommy Mello. Also, I am on the Misfits of HVAC podcast on Saturday. That's Ryan Hughes. Ryan Hughes has a huge following. Hughes Man AC on YouTube. He's a big YouTube thing. I'm going to be on his podcast as a guest on Saturday. So it's at 9:00, I think, Eastern on Saturday. And so, yeah, and we'll organize with everybody else. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Incredible engagement. I love all the conversations that everybody's having in all the groups, and we'll see you next week.